Terrahawks, stay on this channel. This is an emergency.
I mean, yeah, it certainly is an emergency that we've started podcasting again for another week. Can't imagine that comes as good news to some people.
I hear that we are in the 10 top pop of all Gerry Anderson podcasts. Did you hear this?
I didn't hear that.
The pop top 10. The 10 top pop.
Do we do anything particularly poppy?
No.
Could we do anything particularly poppy? Could we get our own cake? Could we get our own cake Kestrel to just come along and interrupt the podcast to sing a few songs for a minute?
You could wear a wig and sing songs for a minute, and I know that because I've seen it done. You're very good at
where did you see that?
Your costumes. Well, a little thing called Clash.
Do
that on the show, even though most people won't know.
Oh, great! Send all of our listeners to go looking for that. I don't think you'll find anything.
Good luck. This is the security hazard scavenger hunt. Can you discover Clash?
Can you? Well,
the Clash franchise.
I know who you have to go and talk to go and check that out.
There is a gatekeeper who guards.
There is, and let me tell you,
guards the
tough nut to crack
of Clash.
Yeah,
but anyway, the point is that you can do poppy things. You can dance and do the moves and.
I cannot dance. Let me make that perfectly clear. I used to do. I don't. Yeah, sure, we'll go on this tangent. But I used to do musical theatre growing up, and
so did I.
Studied drama at university and all of that. And you used to have days where you'd go and audition for shows. And I was just well aware that I couldn't dance, and those dance auditions were just the worst thing I've ever had to do. I just used to make it up. You would spend the sort of whole morning learning the choreography, and then forget it. I just made it all up in the end and put on a bit of a daft show. To the point where basically they had to start coming up with parts for me that basically rendered me completely immobile. I was in a production of Fame, and they had me play the teacher because the teachers were never around for the dance.
Oh, numbers. Yeah. Good thinking. Yeah. That's innovative thinking, yeah.
Go on, bring that back round to Terrahawks.
Another circle in the Venn diagram of our security hazard hosts. We're musical theater kids who can't dance.
Well, it's a good thing that you only ever see us from basically from the shoulders up.
Exactly, just like the Terrahawks puppets. Hey,
there we go. We can start the show.
Yay! At last.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast that's tastier than a bowl of granite crunchies, but gets stuck in your teeth just as easily. It's the Security Hazard Show.
Yay! And your host is a man with 9 lives, but only if he remembers to go to the data dump on a regular basis. It's Jack Knoll of Security Hazard, ladies and gentlemen.
I haven't had to use any of my 9 lives yet, it has to be said. I've lived quite a sheltered life. I'm not the sort of person to put myself in danger as regularly as Dr. Neinstein does, but...
Are you more of a hero than a Neinstein? Are you
sitting up in my space station, talking to my plants, Although that being said, my plants definitely don't have 9 lives. Those things are kaput as soon as you get to them. But anyway, my co-host today, he's a man who will terror your hawks if you let them fly too close to his house. It's Ben Wolfpage.
I'm really uncomfortable with that intro. I don't know what that means.
I don't know what it means either. I suppose it means that you've got birds of prey circling around your dwelling.
Buzzards, perhaps. I'm
yeah.
really more of a Hawkeye. I'm sort of like,
Hmm.
gung ho and nice,
Yeah.
but I disappear towards the end.
I think you've got far more characterization
Oh,
going on than Hawkeye. It has
thank
to
you.
be said.
Thank you.
I think there's a lot more to you in that. You certainly say a lot more than Hawkeye does.
That's true.
Yeah,
That's true.
yeah.
What are we talking about today, Jack?
Today we are tackling a special assignment. We are kind of continuing on a theme from last week of weird home media releases of Gerry Anderson shows. We are, if you couldn't already tell, we're going along a bit of a Terrahawks theme. And we thought, well, if we're doing Terrahawks, it would be good to cover the first episode, Expect the Unexpected. But we thought, well, what's a weird spin we can put on it?
We couldn't just talk about Expect the Unexpected as it.
No, that would be far too.
Is.
That would be far too expected. We had to do something unexpected. So what we are doing is we are taking a look at the VHS compilation film release of Expect the Unexpected, and that means, oh boy, we're heading for a special assignment.
I have received a report from Spectrum Intelligence. It will mean I have a special assignment for you.
Oh, beautiful.
But it's a sewer.
We'll need a team.
I hope you will forgive me.
So, I feel like to start us off, we should probably get into how we first experienced Terrahawks, because I think it's fair to say that for neither of us, the VHS tapes were not our entry point into it. What was it like for you?
Well, Terrahawks is very special to me for a lot of reasons, but one of the reasons is how I first experienced it. It was the first... I believe the first thing I ever purchased on eBay was a Terrahawks DVD box set. It was probably the third DVD that I would have ever purchased. I started buying Gerry Anderson shows on DVD before I had a DVD player. So I was just kind of amassing these things.
You just collected them just to look at them.
Just to look at them in anticipation of the day when I would be able to play them. And by the time I got Terrahawks, I did have a DVD player, and I remember it took ages to arrive from eBay. So I went out to the mailbox and sat there waiting for the mail for hours every day. And it didn't come for, felt like weeks and weeks. I was sitting out there by the mailbox, and it arrived, and I watched the whole first disc in one sitting and just plowed through that show. And it was so completely unexpected. But this was in America, so it would have been the A&E box set, which is green with some orange trim. Looks absolutely like the Revelation Films UK box set that you've got in front of you.
Right. Yes. So, well, I should say that this specific box set is not actually my first Terrahawks DVD experience. It would have been I got the individual volume 1 DVD, still from Revelation Films. So, I mean, the content is still exactly the same, but it didn't come in this chunky box. I got volume 1. It probably was one of the earliest things ever ordered online in my household, because I can't say I remember Terrahawks DVDs being readily available in local DVD stores or anything like that at the time.
I saw one in Barnes and Noble once, but only once. Yeah, that was a rare find.
Yeah.
Next to the Secret Service, in fact, which was like,
wow. I mean, goodness me, that is pretty staggering. Would that have been the A&E release of the Secret Service as well? I remember that box set looking pretty special as well.
It was around the same time that the Thunderbirds movie came out, so this would have been 2004.
Wow. Okay, yeah. But yeah, so my first Terrahawks experience, I would have seen it in I probably mentioned this before, but I saw it in a Gerry Anderson episode guide, saw some photos of the puppets and thought, oh, wow, they look interesting. What do you mean they're controlled from underneath? And, all this sort of stuff. It's like Super Mario Nation for a new generation. And then I actually watched the first episode, Expect the Unexpected, and was totally amazed to see puppets with their mouths opening all of the way. that was just stunning to me. I and from that point on, I was hooked. I was totally into it. So yeah, I had that first DVD volume, and I played that until eventually, probably a birthday or Christmas or something came around, and I was gifted this full chunky DVD box set with the whole series on it. And people will say that the quality of of it was not very good, that it hadn't been beautifully restored or anything like that. Didn't matter to me. I just loved it. I just soaked it all up. So yeah, I really enjoyed all of these DVDs. And then what a treat it was later on for it to come out on Blu-ray, which
nice.
Which then came back around into what we're talking about today, which is the VHS compilation, because included as a special feature on this Blu-ray set is the VHS compilation version of Expect the Unexpected.
Right. Wow.
And yeah, the history of Terrahawks on VHS is unlike other Anderson shows, because it sort of came out in the 80s quite half-heartedly and then disappeared, and it was just impossible to track them down. And the weird quirk of it was that they were all released as compilation films. Typical Anderson VHS releases, it would be either 2 episodes of Thunderbirds on a tape or like 4 episodes of Stingray or something like that, but it would be the episodes presented with their opening titles and closing credits in full, pretty much exactly as they were broadcast. But in the case of Terrahawks, they decided, for one reason or another, that they were going to do compilation films where they cut the titles and closing credits off and tried to stitch the episodes together. And they link them fairly thematically. I have the full list in front of me. So there were 6 volumes altogether. Expect the Unexpected, which we're going to talk about today, included obviously both parts of Expect the Unexpected, but also Thunder Roar and Close Call. And then you had other ones like Hostages of Mars, which is To Catch a Tiger, Mind Monster, Operation SAS, and 10 Top Pop. And right down to other ones like Zero Strikes Back, which was the Midas Touch, Unseen Menace, Zero's Finest Hour, and the Ultimate Menace. So sort
Very
of
nice.
Grouping together episodes that sort of revolve around a certain topic, but they also happen to kind of fall in production order fairly close together anyway. But it did mean that by that, going by that method, there were 6 VHS tapes released. Not every episode ended up on VHS, which is kind of crazy to think about, that you couldn't actually find every episode until these DVD box sets came out. That's kind of nuts to think about, in my opinion. Anyway, it's kind of weird.
What it reminds me of, Jack, is the release of Starfleet, actually.
Yes, tell us about that.
Well, Starfleet was released in the UK on, I think, 2, maybe 3 videotapes that were compilation films, and most of the episodes were represented, but not all of them. So sort of like Terrahawks, there was leftovers. The only way to get kind of the whole series was a group of compilation films from the US. So the US, where Starfleet wasn't really a major release.
Yeah.
It was just kind of floating around. They made a big push to get it in video stores. And they made several compilation films covering just about every English language episode of Terrahawks. But with the titles chopped off and with some scenes cut for time. So for a long time, there were just scenes of Starfleet that weren't available. And I imagine, the same way as Terrahawks, only you had to wait for the DVDs to get the whole thing.
Yeah, kind of nuts. But it's interesting actually to think about that, because what Terrahawks fans, people watching at the time, would have had available to them that wouldn't have been possible in earlier years was they could have done home video recording of episodes as they were being broadcast. So
True.
that sort of presents its own possibilities in a way. But yeah, I mean, just this interesting choice to not present the episode, like for some reason, because it was on VHS, it was felt like, well, you couldn't just include the episodes as is. You have to do something to them to make it specifically a video release of them.
And we talked about Super Space Theater last week. I wonder if there was a sense of, well, if we repackage these as movies, we can resell them in a totally different way.
People won't buy them if it's just, oh, well, those are just the episodes as they were on TV. I don't need that.
Yeah, maybe there was a sense in the early days that, oh, people won't buy a whole TV show on tape because it's too bulky, and I don't know, because that was sort of a concern for movies with lots of franchises like Bond, where it was like, oh yeah, do you want 15 films on your shelf on VHS in a row? It's it becomes really, really bulky really fast.
Funny how far we've come, comparing those two Terrahawks box sets that I've got on my desk right now. The DVD box set, which came on 10 discs altogether.
Wow.
Slimline cases, though, it must be said. But compare that to the Blu-ray set, which is just a regular Blu-ray box with, I think, is it 6 discs altogether? Containing all the episodes plus all the special features. Yeah, I mean, it's crazy to get. Yeah, you can imagine a VHS shelf full of tapes. I mean, I don't have to imagine it. I remember well watching my VHS collection bulging the shelves that I had in my bedroom. Yeah, crazy. The amount of real estate having a whole
lots
show
of nostalgia
could
for VHS,
up.
but man, oh man, did it take up some space.
It really did. It really did. It was kind of nuts. Yeah, so already, Terrahawks is in a slightly awkward situation as far as a home media release, because you've got these VHS tapes which aren't quite the episodes as they were broadcast, and, not all of the episodes came out. And then the other problem was that those VHS tapes weren't really re-released in a major way, so some of them went out of print very early on. I think apparently the last one, Zero Strikes Back, became particularly quite hard to find because it was just, there was a limited run of them, and once they were gone, they were gone. So yeah, it's just kind of difficult to wrap my head around today. Nuts. But there is one interesting saving grace that the Terrahawks VHS range does have, and particularly this first tape, Expect the Unexpected. What is astounding about it, really, and quite special, is the fact that it includes a whole bunch of deleted scenes, stuff that didn't make it into the broadcast version of the episodes, which in turn did not make it onto the DVD release or the Blu-ray set either. The master version of the episodes that's used on these releases is what was broadcast. Right. So therefore, those deleted scenes are only available as part of the Expect the Unexpected VHS release. And I have to say, along similar lines to what we experienced last week with Thunderbirds in Outer Space, where it was kind of like I had the version I was used to as a kid, and seeing anything changed or different about it therefore became odd. It was very strange today to go and take a look at the Expect the Unexpected VHS presentation with those scenes included. Quite jarring.
Very much so. I consider myself a big Terrahawks fan because I just told you the story about how I got the DVDs, and I remember reading about Terrahawks on dial-up internet. All the websites that were there were a lot of great Terrahawks fan sites back in the day with guest books signed by some people who worked on Terrahawks, which was kind of a novelty. The Thunderbirds, I mean, there weren't that many people from the Thunderbirds crew who were online in the early 2000s, but there were some people from Terrahawks.
Interesting. Wow.
So I knew about it, and I bought the DVDs and watched them over and over and over again, and I thought I knew all there was to know. And then lo and behold, I pop on this VHS, not having really looked at it before, just kind of assuming it was kind of a novelty on the Blu-ray release.
Right.
So I didn't really know what I was in for. And then suddenly there's little bits that I don't recognize. And I'm thinking, well, okay, so the American version of the DVDs, or the A&E, I should say, release, I think there's been other releases, maybe just the imported ones. Is that the only American release of Terrahawks?
The only one I know of, yeah.
Anyway, in any case, the version that I had growing up, Expect the Unexpected, was presented as a single 45-minute presentation.
Oh,
so it didn't have the two-part. It didn't have the end credits. It just went straight from 1 into 2.
Okay.
So I was assuming, these are things that, I just didn't grow up watching in the same way.
Yes.
Like you grew up watching Thunderbirds in Outer Space, and then you watch Sun Probe, and you're like, there's these extra scenes. I thought that's what I was watching. But then more and more of them kept happening as I'm watching this Channel 5
these little
VHS
bits you've not seen before.
And I'm like, this seems like a lot for A&E to have cut out. I wonder if there's more going on here. And of course, I did a quick Google and discovered that, lo and behold, and all the Terrahawks aficionados watching this are throwing things at their screen right now because they know that these were deleted scenes, and I was, in my naivete, did not know that there were deleted scenes of Terrahawks. So it was, in a weird way, it was like a gift of rediscovering new bits of my favorite old show. So it was quite a gift for this Terrahawks 1010.
Okay, but you didn't know that that's what we were getting into when we started.
No.
Okay.
I was taken by surprise.
Now you see, I was aware of it, but I had never actually sat down. I think I might have watched the deleted scenes in isolation. I'm pretty sure someone put them on YouTube, but I had never sat down and watched Expect the Unexpected with those scenes kind of in place.
Yeah.
And they, take me by surprise, sort of like, oh, that scene should have ended by now. Why are they still talking? Situation that was going on. But yeah, I wasn't aware that about what you said about the A&E DVD set putting part 1 and part 2 together. Because the UK, the Revelation DVD set did not do that. They were
have that option.
Separate. So you never would have seen things like the recap at the beginning of part 2 and that sort of thing. How interesting.
Well, I've seen it subsequently because it's been up on the Gerry Anderson YouTube channel.
Yeah. Well, and that was the version that was put on the Blu-ray as well. So that makes sense. But no, interesting because it therefore sounds like A&E put that together themselves.
I'm not sure if it was put together themselves or if it was a version from the American broadcast version. Ooh. I don't know where the masters were sourced from. Yeah. But it's kind of it's a novelty box set because it's got some unique bonus features that I don't think are anywhere else. There's like a photo gallery narrated by Steve Begg. There's an audio commentary from Tony Bell and Bob Bell on Gunfight at Oki's Corral.
Really? Oh, I wasn't aware of that.
All kinds of little things that just. So it's all those A&E DVDs.
Put that on my shopping list.
If you see them floating around,
buy myself an A&E DVD box set of Terrahawks because there's stuff on there that I'd never seen.
Any of even the Stingray box set and the Thunderbirds mega set, all those old A&E DVDs had unique extras. So if you can find them for a reasonable price, sometimes people want to charge silly money for them. But if you find them for a reasonable price, as an Ander fan, they're worth picking up because sometimes they have little gems that you don't find on the UK releases or vice versa.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, there you go. There you go. Yeah, learning something there. But yeah, so although I was aware of the deleted scenes in the VHS compilation, I hadn't ever watched them in situ. And I've got to say, I mean, it's difficult because I'm coming to it being so familiar with the cut that I'm familiar with. But to me, it does just sort of feel like the scenes drag on a little bit too long. I can understand why those cuts were made. Let's put it that way. They sort of try to establish more about the organization and stuff like that, but they don't do it very elegantly. They feel like bits of exposition that are just sort of left dangling there. For example,
kind of in a case by case.
Yeah, I mean, the one example that stands out to me is talking about the data dump. There's a whole extensive bit where Mary and Zero talk about Neinstein and the data dump and all that stuff, which isn't in the original episode, but is there. And it makes sense that for a pilot episode, you would want to establish how does what's the whole deal with this clone thing, whereas it's kind of glossed over in Expect the Unexpected, and then suddenly in Gold, which that's a whole other issue of broadcast order, production order. What point do you watch Gold?
Do you want to talk about, because I don't know what order are they on the DVDs for you?
Yes, on the DVDs, Gold is episode 25, not episode 3.
Okay, so that's one thing the A&E DVDs got right, is that they're in production order.
Okay, yes.
So I saw
the episode guide I have open in front of me.
3.
Yeah. Which is what, and then obviously you come to this VHS, and it's Expect the Unexpected parts 1 and 2, plus Thunder Roar and Close Call, which is how it is on the DVD on Volume 1.
That's true.
So it just skips Gold, which I don't know. Again, it's what I'm used to. I'm like, yeah, it kind of makes sense to me that Gold would come
Gold
later.
Is it is the pit of peril of Terrahawks. It's kind of an outlier. In a lot of ways. That sort of weird theme of Tiger being a clone is not really that important to the format of the show, what the format eventually became.
Exactly, yeah.
And so they just sort of drop it after that and don't pick it up again until they do the audio versions many years later.
Exactly, yeah. I wonder why that is, because obviously it's I suppose it's a sort of theme that Gerry would have picked up from Captain Scarlet of like, let's keep killing off the hero and bringing him back again. But I suppose he sort of made a run for his own back by being like, well, there's only 9 of them. It's like, well, Gerry, you're gonna have more than 9 episodes of the show, so you're gonna have to spread out how often you kill your hero quite significantly if you want this show to run for a long time. So it only happens the once in Gold, and that's that.
Which I think Doctor Who's encountered that problem because they sometimes are foolish enough to give a number to the number of regenerations that the Doctor can have, and then they hit that ceiling and then have to figure out what to do. Anyway, I do like Gold, but it's a totally different show in some ways from what comes later.
So I'm very used to what this VHS does. It's the same as what's done on the DVD of going from Expect the Unexpected into Thunder Roar.
Yeah, which is nice.
Makes a lot of sense because Thunder Roar does literally pick up from the end of Expect the Unexpected. You sort of wonder why Gold was produced third, because they very clearly had an idea of what their third episode was supposed to be.
I think they needed time to sort out all the business with the Overlander and the...
Oh, do you think?
Yeah, I think they needed an episode that had less stuff going on as kind of a filler in between the two. And I suspect, based on the fact that there's so many deleted scenes, there's a rumored third cut circulating somewhere of Terrahawks.
Right. Yeah.
I think because in the Gerry Anderson tradition, the same thing would have happened for things like Breakaway or Trapped in the Sky, putting a lot of time into the pilot and really doing reshoots if necessary, and trying to make that first show as good as it possibly could be. I think that probably would have caused them to need a kind of shorter episode to kind of fill in the gap in the same way as like Pit of Peril, or if you look at the production order of Space 1999, you've got Breakaway and then what's it called even?
Matter of Life and Death comes second.
Matter of Life and Death, yeah. It's an episode about Helena's husband who is presumed dead, but it takes place in that order before Black Sun, so how is the moon so far away? It doesn't really fit, and Gold is kind of the same way. But
it's like, well, we just have to work with what scripts are ready. So
exactly
what we're gonna do. Yeah.
And with the production demands of making a TV show in this way, where you put a lot of effort into the pilot, and you have to do something to give room in order to make that pilot the best it can be. With respect to this scene that you brought up here with the data dump, it is interesting to see Tiger having to go regularly and get his mind scanned so that if he dies,
he's
be
always got an up-to-date backup. Yeah.
But it doesn't flow in the cut at all, because there's a scene shortly thereafter where Mary asks him if the song was sung by his grandfather, and he says, I didn't have a grandfather, I had a test tube, which she was just explaining to Zero. Oh, he's a clone, and that's why he has to go do this thing. So I
always like that line, by the way, as like a establisher for the clone thing, without going into too much detail.
Yes,
it is just like, so you're right. The data dump thing sort of feels like overkill. It's like, okay, we've established it, we're good, we're fine here. That's why it's weird. It feels like sometimes those I know it's just from retrospect, but it feels like those extra scenes are extra scenes that they are actually put in later rather than being taken out, which is obviously, I assume anyway, not quite how it worked, but
definitely that scene jumped out to me as a wrong un. But a lot of these scenes, so for example, there's an introduction to Kate Kestrel where she's her first appearance in the deleted scene, or in this cut of Expect the Unexpected, is her at her instrument playing music. And that's it gives her a chance to kind of react to the news about the aliens a little bit more than she gets. And I think that's actually an excellent addition.
Because it looks like, there's about 3 scenes involving Kate that were cut from part 1. Which is odd. Like, it almost sets her up as more of a starring character than she was, at least to start with. Obviously, they figured out what to do with Kate later with the whole pop star thing. But
and clearly they were already thinking about it, but it hadn't quite gelled, and so they took the focus away in the edit. Which I guess must have been the right choice for the time. But looking back, it was really fun for me to get a little bit more Kate. In this cut, and get a little bit more of her perspective. And there's one of the great scenes. She of course, the spoiler alerts ahead in case you haven't already figured that out. They fire Hawkwing's wing into Zelda's ship. And after that, after the explosion, there's an additional line where she says, "That was one of the most exciting moments of my life." Which is such a weird insight into her character. That
it is very still. I mean, I didn't like that line when I heard it. It did sound a bit weird.
It is a bit weird, but I don't know. That wouldn't have occurred to me that would have been exciting, because she plays it so cool in the finished episode.
Exactly. Yeah, that's it.
Totally
it's weird.
Cool.
It feels like she's suddenly breaking character and losing her cool. Because the whole point, because then they have that, oh my God, that scene that goes on for ages afterwards where she talks about, well, I am younger than you, Tiger, so I'm better able to put up with the, going into action like this and stuff like that. And there's all this weird stuff that goes on in this deleted scene that I'm just like,
offbeat.
they're obviously, It's the same with that first scene as well. They're trying to establish some sort of rapport between Kate and Einstein. And in the broadcast version, all of that's gone, and the focus is much more on Einstein and Mary. And I wonder whether they were sort of, when maybe in the initial script, Gerry was kind of hedging his bets and was like, well, maybe we can set up a bit of a, I don't know, maybe even a bit of a love triangle, possibly, sort of a Troy Atlanta Marina type scenario going on, perhaps. Or at least the type of scenario where Einstein holds Mary and Kate in the same regard. Whereas in the broadcast version, it then becomes apparent that no, the rapport between Mary and Einstein is much, much closer. Whereas Kate is kept at sort of a distance.
Until they've kind of figure out what to do with her character in the whole Anderber Records vein.
Yeah.
But there's other nice stuff too. There's a launch sequence which is seen later, but she actually launches to Hawkwing by means of Zeroids who come rolling in and roll away, which I think is hilarious.
Yeah. I mean, it's supposed to be a sort of, it's a little bit of a pastiche on the Thunderbirds thing, isn't it?
It is.
You know, how do you get the pilots from one place to another to launch their craft? And use some Zeroids. Why not? Make use of them.
Parody.
Yeah. What I do love about Expect the Unexpected in general is how fully formed the Zeroids are as a concept.
Yes.
And how actually some things are introduced that don't really turn up that much later on, like Zero increasing his mass and being able to, quote, make himself as heavy as a black hole in order to knock over the force field.
How? Please send us a message letting us know how that works if you have a theory, because that makes no sense to me at all. I need someone to explain it to me.
It's conceptually, I mean, you can't conceive of it. That's the thing.
It's so daft. It's really daft, but
yeah,
it's a lovely sequence. Zero disobeying orders and going in to save Tiger. I think is good fun.
It is nice. It just as I say, it just establishes that character, that relationship between Zero and Einstein. You know, whereas they might have been faltering a little bit on like Kate and Tiger and things like that. I think Tiger and Zero, it's very, very clear from the off, like what they're trying to do with those two characters. And it's a theme that does continue through. It doesn't necessarily evolve very much, but it is consistent, you know.
Yeah.
Tiger's
there's a lot
for Zero.
There's a lot of business about Tiger and Zero that was cut. That's in this extended version. So when Zelda and Hero talk about the Zeroids thinking for themselves, Einstein and Zero have a conversation, an additional conversation about Zeroids thinking for themselves. And there's sort of a much stronger sense that the Zeroids are just supposed to be machines. They are not supposed to be anything more than that.
Yeah.
And to the point that they're not supposed to think for themselves, which is totally different from the way that they approach the Zeroids subsequently.
Yeah. But it does also just kind of, those scenes do just repeat what we already know. They just find different ways of saying the same thing. So again,
they go a bit more, and they go a bit more extreme than the series. It's kind of like, to use a lame sci-fi comparison, it's kind of like in the second season of Star Trek The Next Generation, they bring in a new doctor, a new ship's doctor, who doesn't like Data, the sort of principal robot android character from that show. And it's a similar kind of thing where you design these robots who are charming and funny and the kids love them, and then you set up a character who really hates them.
Yeah.
It took them a while in Terrahawks to find the balance where the sort of rivalry between Tiger and Zero becomes fun and funny.
Yeah.
Rather than kind of cringy and like, this guy hates his subordinate and it's really making me uncomfortable.
Yes, it is a little bit. Yeah, there are some times in Expect the Unexpected that he can be a little bit harsh. You are zero. You are absolute zero. Zilch. Got it?
That's
Like,
good.
Yeah.
That's an excellent your impression there. That's like nailed the
thank you.
Jack Nicholson, Jeremy Hitchin voice.
Head over to youtube.com/Jack Noel and look up a little thing called a Terrahawks Christmas Carol.
Oh, a beautiful thing.
A fan audio story that we did, myself and Andrew Clements and Chris Dale as well contributed to. So you get to hear all my impressions are in there. Yes.
Bravo.
One of the other extended scenes that I found interesting, because actually I feel like it's something that would have benefited the final cut, is when Hero is having to make up his mind about whether to open fire on Zelda's ship or not. Kate gets an extra little bit where she's telling him, "Don't do it. Don't."
I agree.
Yeah. That actually feels kind of necessary because it's what sets up the conflict in the first place. Because he's, in the final cut of the episode, he clearly feels conflicted and he asks the Zeroids what they would do. So I think it helps to have also already heard from Kate telling him not to do it.
I think so.
Just maybe adds a little bit more there that I feel like was necessary. So yeah, that makes sense.
I agree with that. It's a nice bit of business, and it gives him a bit of peer pressure not to do it, which is nice. It's nice thing. Nice setup for Hero.
Yeah, I mean it's fine that they cut it out. Ultimately, I think it's fine, but it's the one of the few deleted scenes that I felt like, this actually adds something. It changes the way that scene ends up playing out. I think. I will say, because unlike you, I was not used to the idea of part 1 and part 2 being joined together. It is very awkward having part 1 and part 2 joined together and not having that cliffhanger of they've opened fired, what's going to happen next. Of course, if you put the two together, that cliffhanger immediately gets resolved without any gap in between it. And it also means that it feels like Zelda and Einstein spend an awfully long time sitting there waiting to get blown up. So that didn't quite work. I mean, as a compilation movie, if you've got to stitch those two episodes together, it's fine. But I think that cliffhanger is necessary. I think you do have to have a gap between part 1 and 2 in order to appreciate the drama of the situation. I think so. I think it certainly works as a cliffhanger. That's certainly my.
It definitely works with a cliffhanger. Like I say, that's not the way that I grew up watching it, so I've never thought of it as necessity. But is it better one way or the other? I don't really know. Don't feel strongly about it.
Yeah. Of course, I'm just talking about what I'm used to. So of course, I'm going to say that cliffhanger's necessary. But
well, but I mean, cliffhangers are good, and Terrahawks in general works as a half-hour show. It's not really meant to be longer. And so when I would rewatch the show, which I did often, I would sometimes skip Expect the Unexpected, because it's like, okay, well, you go back to the beginning and the puppets are a bit more rubbish. They hadn't quite mastered it yet. The tone of the show is different. It's not as funny. So maybe that one's long. So you maybe skip that one and move on to some of the more fun early ones like Space Samurai or Spirilla. And so I understand where you're coming from. But all that to say, I think there's probably a way, and this Channel 5 video has given me a new kind of lease of life on Expect the Unexpected.
Oh, that's good.
those additional scenes, I think added a bit more. They're all none of them are necessary to drive the plot per se, but they're all little character moments.
Yeah,
they give you a little bit more insight into these characters and what they're about.
I think
that's something that's sorely lacking from Expect the Unexpected. It can be a bit stilted.
Sure. I do think the reason why I don't necessarily feel the deleted scenes are as special is, yes, they are character moments, but they're sort of versions of the characters that aren't then picked up on later.
Yeah,
They
true.
sort of exist in their own bubble. Things like Kate turning around and saying, "That was the most exciting thing I've ever done." It's like, no, Kate would never really say that.
Not
like
Kate.
They changed the character later on.
Absolutely, that's true.
So yeah, in a way, it's like, yes, you get extra insight into the character, but it's like, well, no, because that's not what the character ended up being in the end anyway. So
yeah, it's just an interesting vision into the Terrahawks that we could have had.
Yeah, exactly.
Darker, edgier, more UFO, less whatever Terrahawks is.
Yeah, whatever. Goodness knows whatever Terrahawks is. Yeah. One other silly deleted scene that I'm like, why the heck did they even? Why was that even in there in the first place? Was Hudson talking about the quality of the road?
Yes, I like this because I think it adds a sense of Zelda's trustworthiness, where it's sort of like, like Zelda's up to something the whole time, but for Hudson to be like, this is actually a pretty good job, this is pretty great, any little things like that.
I think it's weird. It's weird to talk about a stretch of tarmac as being some sort of marvel of engineering. I think that's where it falls down a little bit. I was like, if Zelda had built them a new spaceship or something, then you would talk about it in those terms. But it's just a road. It's like, Hudson, what are you supposed to say? Who gives their review of a road? I mean, realistically,
and
who's doing
why
that?
is it a road? Like, it's a road because they wanted to introduce Hudson, like the concept of Hudson.
Right.
That's why
exactly.
Zelda is a road.
Yeah.
So it's
weird.
It's a bit shoehorned in there. It doesn't feel, but it is sort of on this go around. It struck me that that building a road in the middle of a jungle is sort of a Super Mario Nation thing, particularly Thunderbirds. So that was like, oh, okay, I can kind of see, like, okay, back in the 60s, we used to have to use giant atomic machines to clear roads. Now we just do it through the power of Zelda's, mind.
Yes. I mean, I suppose, yes, it is an engineering marvel, but in a way,
in a way that's not
even by the early 80s, I think we're a little bit past that.
I think so too.
Because actually, I tell you what, this is a deep cut reference.
Oh,
the Power Game, which we know was one of Gerry and Sylvia's favorite TV shows. The Power Game is all about how, isn't it marvelous that we can build all these roads and all of the intrigue that goes along around this sort of stuff.
Yes.
So I wonder whether there was an element of that maybe that went into it.
I don't know.
I'm just saying, like, nowadays we don't look at road building as a fantastic engineering marvel, whereas in the 60s, motorways were a relatively new invention, so it was kind of well, obviously this is amazing, but I just don't know whether by the 80s it was still as much of a point of interest. Anyway, I feel like we spent far too long talking about roads.
it is interesting because, well, I didn't quite twig. I hadn't thought about it in a while. This isn't necessarily deleted scene material.
No, that's fine.
Tiger talks about Hudson as being an antique that he's restored and refitted.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, that's in our episode. We did an episode, Hudson versus Fab One.
Yeah.
And you and I both went for Hudson, if I recall correctly.
Yes, you are.
We didn't even really talk about that he would have been current for the audience, like a current styled, an 80s styled Rolls Royce, but to Tiger, that's a 40-year-old car that he's refitted with the latest kind of, Tesla tech.
But that's funny in retrospect, because it's like, well, Hudson was a reference back to Fab 1 anyway. So it was an antique in that sense as well. Bizarre. And yeah, not an element that's really talked about again is the idea that Hudson was a restored.
And here's a question too. Like, was Gerry in the room with Christopher Burr, and they're like sitting there and they've got a legal pad, and Jerry's like, "Here's all my ideas for this show." and one of these ideas, they go through the bullet points, and Jerry's like, "Oh right, this
Gerry Anderson impressions come out. Does it mean I have to do Christopher?
No.
I don't really know what Christopher Burr sounds like. I know a little bit, like maybe a bit. Anyway, no, sorry.
That sounds like your Lou Grade voice. Anyway, the bullet point is like, okay, and there's a Rolls Royce, sort of like we did with Fab 1, and it's futuristic, it's camouflage. Instead of pink, it can be any color. And instead of having a chauffeur drive it, it has an AI, so it's like Parker is built into the car. Wow. Is anybody like sitting around like, ooh, wouldn't it be nice if, like, you know, a famous chauffeur character was like part of the car in some way?
Yeah.
It's such a funny way of, I guess now we think about AI totally differently than people did in the 80s, obviously.
Yeah.
And robots in general, but it's just weird to be like, yeah, Parker, we're going to like get rid of the character of Parker, but make him like one with the car. It's a funny take.
That's it. That's it exactly. But of course, so much of Hudson changes when it's sort of when he becomes Kate's car rather than Einstein. So that probably puts a slightly different spin on it. But then that sort of turns Hudson into, obviously we're going back into Hudson discussion territory, but I feel like it's worthwhile.
We just can't stay away.
We can't stay away, no, but he ends up obviously becoming Kate's agent, and then it's like we're looking at computers as like personal organizers and stuff like that. Which interesting.
Makes sense.
But it's funny, the way that, I mean, it's literally said in the episode, like, Hudson is not like Zero. This machine has breeding, you know. It's like, what does that mean?
The idea of machines breeding is just is staggering.
Well, he means it more in a sort of
I know what he means.
He's upper class and refined, and
but the idea of machines having classes is just like,
oh, exactly, because obviously they're programmed. You make them the way you want to make them.
Yeah, it's crazy, but I wonder if this was just kind of in the air, because there was a big TV show around the same time called Knight Rider about a guy with a smart car who has kind of a posh English accent, kind of. So I just wonder if that was in the water, and all of this is sort of related to our discussion we should have had in our Hudson episode.
Well, coming back round then to to this VHS release of Expect the Unexpected. I mentioned that, you know, we lead then straight into Thunder Roar. And the lead in, it almost works. They almost lead straight from one episode into the other. The only problem is there has been a gap. There has been a time gap between the two episodes. So it's like she awakens SRAM at the end of part 2 of Expect the Unexpected. And then by the beginning of Thunder Roar, is that your best SRAM impression?
Yeah, that was.
Well, we'll get on to SRAM. We'll get on to SRAM talking and SRAM impressions and things like that. Don't you worry. But yeah, then you have what's supposed to be a gap of like a little while, and then Thunder Roar starts with SRAM ready to go on his mission and go down to Earth in a spaceship. In this compilation edition, it leads straight from SRAM being defrosted, and immediately Young Star comes in and says, "Oh, SRAM's ready to go." And it's like, we haven't even left the room. He's still lying on the slab, isn't he? No, suddenly he comes in through the door, and it's a bit bizarre. Doesn't
It's a
quite
bit
work.
of a
It's a
bummer.
shame because it almost works.
It does. It does. I started to get excited when I saw they cut to SRAM's face
Yeah.
as he's like emerging from the ice, and then they cut to Zelda's face, and she's kind of looking down. So
Yeah.
it feels like it was intentional, and you're
Yeah.
like, oh man, that feels like it fits. But then Youngstar comes in and ruins everything, like always.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
That guy.
Weird. I always forget that Thunder Roar is our first introduction to Youngstar, and he's so
Yeah.
normal. He's so
He's-
average.
Well, he's almost like an Igor, isn't he? He comes in like limping, and
Yeah.
he looks like a haunted house character.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
at all like what he becomes.
Yeah. Zelda treats him relatively respectfully, you know.
That's-
He's relatively, I mean, he's still gurgling, but he's relatively well spoken and stuff. Like, it's just weird. It's just not right. And I have to say that, you know, people talk about the more stoic tone of the early Terrahawks episodes.
Mhm.
I don't necessarily see that so much in Expect the Unexpected, but I definitely see it in Thunder Roar. And I have to say, I don't like it. It's not an episode that I'm particularly fond of, which is funny because it was one of the very few that I was able to watch as a kid before I bought the whole DVD set. So I've seen Thunder Roar a lot, and I have to say it doesn't gel with me. I think the tone of it is so... when people talk about Terrahawks taking itself too seriously in those early days, really, for me, this is one of the few episodes that really does take itself too seriously.
I agree. One of the biggest proponents of the early Terrahawks is my good friend and friend of the show, Adam Luff, who feels like there was a missed opportunity, and I'm going to try to represent what he says well, and I'm sure we'll get him on the show at some point in the future, and he can clarify his views. Or you can watch his show, Keep and Destroy, which is still out there on YouTube. Look up Gerry Anderson, Keep and Destroy, and he does a bunch of different shows there, and his views on Terrahawks are made known. But basically, the kind of gist of the point of view is that there's a real opportunity for Terrahawks to be scary in this kind of story, where, you know, SRAM kind of towers over Zelda, which he doesn't later. They're looking up at him, and he's got, you know, glistening drool coming from his mouth. He's very monstrous. There's a real sense that this could have been very scary, but as soon as he starts talking, it becomes, you know, something else entirely. And it just feels like, I do agree. There's a great opportunity for the horror of Terrahawks to kind of make scary things. And to, you know, there's even the influence of Alien with the blood that's poisonous has a bit of an illusion there. There's something brewing under the surface, but it definitely doesn't work for me. It never worked for me as a kid. I always would skip over Thunder Roar on the DVDs.
It's a pacing thing as well. It's quite a slow one. Not a lot actually happens in it. Once SRAM lands on Earth, it's kind of like get stuck in a cave. That's pretty much where you are for the whole thing.
And you get the introduction of Tim, who's a character who doesn't really work. The medical bracelet.
Again, another kind of AI robotic device that Neinstein actually likes compared to the Zeroids.
He's very selective, Neinstein. He's very selective about his robots.
I mean, I think Tim could have maybe done a bit more in the show, but I'm not surprised that he stops turning up.
Tiger saves his life in Gold. He tosses him into Hudson with the intention of, you know.
I love how he sends his two favorite. He sends his two favorite, machines off to save the day in Gold, and very sacrifices himself. It's very strange. But overall, honestly, I don't have a lot to say about Thunder Roar because it is just, it's just a little bit tedious. And SRAM talking, doesn't quite. I mean, the fact is the voice doesn't match the face at all.
Or the growls, even.
He's very posh, very well spoken, and there's the idea of him as this sort of ruler of he's Shram, Lord of Felony, and it's like, you don't strike me as an aristocratic type. Yeah, and sort of you wonder, how did this guy end up with Zelda? He seems like he could easily look after himself. He's not monstrous enough. You do have moments, like I love the moment where he roars and the rock stack collapses. I think that's really good. That's really striking. But there just isn't enough of that in Thunder Roar.
I really don't like. I do like moments where he roars. I really don't like that he roars over his shoulder to deflect the oncoming blasts. It's like, how do you yell away laser fire from behind you? It doesn't make any sense to me. I think the real problem for me with Thunder Roar is that maybe I just wasn't young enough when I saw it. I think if I had seen it when I was 5 or 6, it would have terrified the pants off me, and in all the best ways, and I would have loved it. But seeing it as I was probably 12 or 13 by the time I saw this show, so watching it as an older kid, it was like, oh, this doesn't really live up to my expectations.
Yeah.
And I think that colors it. I think some people have fond memories of being scared of Zelda and her monsters. And I really don't, because I was too old.
No.
So
I think that's fair enough. Yeah. And SRAM sort of then comes back a few times in the show, and they don't play on the horror aspect at all. It just sort of becomes a gimmick. The roar becomes a gimmick, and then he doesn't talk anymore. And it's like, you just missed the opportunity. You were sort of trying to go for it, and then you veered off in the other direction with it. So but there we go.
That theme that he talks about of the kind of evil of man, of persecuting non-human things. Something really interesting about that, but they explore that much better in Space Samurai. I think it's probably the best effort at that theme in the show. So it's almost but not quite for Thunder Roar.
Yeah. The other weird thing in Thunder Roar, I sort of feel like I'm misremembering it now because it sounds so silly, but Battlehawk being used as like a drilling machine to get into the cave.
Didn't you know from your toy Battlehawk that it has a drill in the front of it?
I can tell you that it certainly does not, and I still don't really, even though it's in the show, I still don't really believe that it does. That's just one of those things that I'm like, no, they got rid of that after a while. That just wasn't
that's another thing where it's like, instead of it's like they took Thunderbird 2 and they were like, what if instead of having pod vehicles, it was just one machine that does everything?
Yeah, this giant orange bus coming in. I mean, that's the problem, is it's just too big. It's just too big of a vehicle to use for sort of nimble little activities like that. Very, very strange. But yeah, otherwise, I don't necessarily have too much to say about Thunder Roar. That's kind of the impression it left on me. And then this tape finishes up with Close Call, which I don't remember finding that interesting as a kid either, honestly. It's a bit too talky. Not enough action going on in that one. I think the tone is slightly better. I think if you like serious Terrahawks, then you probably like Close Call. Just because, like, I love all the thunderstorm stuff. Zelda coming in. Love that observation about, Zelda isn't wet because she used her powers not to get rained on. I like little things like that.
And you can see the seed of what is to come with Zelda using her powers to keep herself dry, but making her son walk through the rain is like that's perfect. And also the way the soundtrack, it just cuts off. The rain noise cuts off when you cut away from Youngstar and cut back to Daryl. It's like, the rain's gone. and it's like, ooh, it's spooky and weird, and
Yeah, there is a level of spookiness to Close Call that I really like because you've got Mark Darrell being
right.
possessed by Zelda.
Yeah, and you never
yeah, there
quite
is some-
know until the end exactly what is going on with him, if he's possessed or if he's because he says I made a deal and I'm gonna stick with it.
Mm,
So there's sort of like, is he still in there? Is he,
yeah,
human in
yeah,
some way? And it's
yeah,
very creepy and very successful. I love the Overlander. A lot of people have said this, but it's one of the best, most successful Terrahawks vehicles. It's a great
yeah,
design,
yeah.
great bit of business. I love to watch it get destroyed. That's
Yeah,
one of
any
my favorite
opportunity to do
things.
that. Yeah, any opportunity for that. Yeah, no, it makes total sense. I always wanted to slightly understand better the relationship between the Overlander and the Terrahawks, and like, was it one of their vehicles or was it leased out by some other company? Because they go into that a little bit in Zero's Finest
Zero's
Hour.
Finest Hour,
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so they clearly thought, oh yeah, the Overlander's a good vehicle. We should try and incorporate it into more episodes. But
yeah.
there are only a few ways that you could do that, most of which involved let's have Zelda try and drive it into something,
Which is great.
and make a mess, which is fine. Yeah,
I'm
fair
here
enough.
for it. I love
Yeah.
the fact that the show kind of towards the end it condenses the world into pockets that are like the jungle pocket, the desert pocket, the Hawk Nest pocket,
Yeah,
the Mars pocket, and they develop all of those things really well. Though they get to go deeper into those
yes, exactly. Yeah.
tiny worlds.
Yeah,
And
I suppose
I love about it.
I love that, and I suppose that's what's slightly weird about Close Call for me is it doesn't fit into one of those pockets. Like you're not really sure which
Right? Yeah.
what part of the Terrahawks universe like Mark Darrell comes from.
Well, he
just seems
doesn't.
to be this
He's
sort of
a
separate entity. Yeah.
Yeah. There's no the whole idea of a media scandal is like alien to most of the rest of Terrahawks. It's only alluded to a couple of times after that.
Yeah.
In things like To Catch a Tiger, where there's a freighter, a shipment of coming back from deep space that gets waylaid by Zelda. So there's some allusion to like an outside world that we don't see much of.
Exactly.
But it's really not. He doesn't really belong. He's part of that earlier show that they were trying to make, failed, and then made something really bizarre instead.
Yeah, he's just a bit too sort of normal as a character, isn't he? He's just sort of there, and
yeah, and he
just
looks
generic news guy.
The puppet looks great. Just like it's
good
kind of like
puppet,
staring off into space. Face is great. I love his like. I don't know, just like the character of like this like news hound investigative journalist.
I suppose
lives
it's a little
alone in
bit.
the woods.
It's a little bit Ned Cook, isn't it? In a way,
Perhaps, yeah.
Might have been sort of some of the inspiration, but without the charisma, I guess.
Yeah.
Maybe
That's it. You don't have the Matt Zimmerman charisma giving him that kind of enthusiasm.
Yeah, but it is weird in Terrahawks, to see ordinary people. Like he's just a guy in a sweater, basically. It's like, I just think about when you see like regular human guest characters come up later in the show, they're like, the guy who owns Pete's Diner and stuff like that. They're all like really, they're drawn, like they're very heavily drawn stereotypes and stuff like that. And the guy who runs the circus in, that later episode as well. They're all like cartoon characters essentially.
Right.
Whereas Mark Darrell, you're supposed to take him seriously as like a real person who, has a house and a job and everything like that. And it's sort of like, no, that's not what Terrahawks is for, really. That's not why it's there.
He's a UFO character, almost. Like that's
a
the
little
character
bit
that would pop up in UFO. Someone who's investigating Shadow and, trying to expose this government cover-up. That's totally a UFO story.
Yeah, it is. It really is. Yeah. But yeah, no, I mean, I quite like. I kind of like Close Call. I really like all that. Mary, You're a Day at the Beach stuff.
That really is where they start to click.
Yes.
And it's
yes.
I do sort of question the implication that you sort of have to like shoot first and ask questions later, which is sort of the moral at the end of the episode, where it's like Tiger trusts his gut instincts to shoot, and that's what saves the day. I do sort of question that a little bit. I'm not sure that that's sound messaging for a children's show, but the chemistry between Tiger and Mary starts to develop here, and it does really work.
For the
first time.
It does. Yeah, it definitely does.
And some great puppetry as well. There's a lovely bit where Mary says, "That's a really safe option," and she does this little head twirl and spins and walks off. That's, Christine Glanville at work there.
It's lovely puppetry. And it's great. It does give Mary a very distinctive character, which she was kind of desperately in need of. The only problem is that she's so often the person who spoils all the fun, basically.
Yeah, it's not a fully rounded character.
She's just kind of nagging him, and you don't really feel you're like, come on, guys, it's Terrahawks. Of course, we're gonna have to kill a few people. That's just so she brings in the moral dimension, but sometimes you don't really want it there. To be honest, you want it called out.
Yeah, well, you don't. You either don't want it there because you want the action, or you just know that Tiger is a jerk.
Yeah.
And you know that Mary's right. Like, Hawkeye on probation. Like, why did he do that? What purpose? What leadership purpose did it serve? It's sort of this. There's this sort of like leaders in Anderson shows are often portrayed as just people who have to make tough decisions, and they just have to come down on you hard and make sure that you don't let up, and it's this sort of like it's the stone that's going to fall on you and crush you.
Yeah, I guess so.
It doesn't, that's not what like real good leadership looks like.
No.
And I think Gerry Anderson must have known that, because he wouldn't have been able to lead things the way.
Well, it depends on who you ask, doesn't it?
Yeah, there's all kinds
People
of
like Brian Johnson were not so keen. The classic story about how Brian Johnson got fired from Thunderbirds, or rather left.
Yeah.
But, well, anyway, the disagreement between Brian Johnson and Gerry Anderson and him
is famous.
Maybe a little bit harsh and stuff like that. I'm like, I can see a little bit of Neinstein in people's descriptions of Gerry. And
there's
like
definitely
that.
I think just by the choice alone to make the main character be an older person is sort of reflective of the stage of life that Gerry was in / headed towards.
Yeah, I mean, it has to be.
Also,
you can't really get away from that.
A lady named Mary in the picture. I mean, it's sort of hard to avoid that subtext. But I do think that you can dissect the leadership qualities of Gerry Anderson. Obviously, a complicated man about whom biographies have been written.
Yes, exactly.
But as a TV show, it doesn't. It's sort of in that netherworld where it's like, well, it's not quite an inspirational, educational message for kids, but it's also not like a bang bang shoot 'em up kind of action story either.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really land in either camp.
Yeah.
So
but
it's
I will say I do firmly like Neinstein as a character. I like that it's something different. Yeah, I like that it's something different. I think that probably has to do with when I discovered Terrahawks being a little bit of a entering my teenage years and sort of looking for because it's so alternative to something like Thunderbirds, where the heroes are all very nice people. I think I understood and appreciated the humor in Neinstein being a bit grumpy and difficult and stuff like that. I think I
probably appreciate that more now than I did then. But
we all get more cynical and and awkward as we get older, so it makes
we need our lobster claws and our hot bath.
Oh, that's the bit I always Yeah.
Like,
Neinstein being obsessed with fine dining is yeah, it's an interesting character trait, isn't it?
Oh,
It doesn't
man.
make him likable, but that's what that's
Oh.
ultimately that is what I like, is that he doesn't try to be likable.
No, he makes no apologies for who he is, does he? He's just
Yeah.
sort of like he's the jerk boss, and that's that's the way it is, and that's you sort of grow to like appreciate his curmudgeonliness, and
Yeah.
as the show goes on, they find more ways to kind of give you a window into why he is the way he is.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's kind of what makes a character like Straker work. Like Straker
Mhm.
is also that same type of like, you know, we've got to make tough choices.
Yeah.
It's what we do kind of character. But they humanize him by giving him storylines like a question of priorities, like confetti
Yes.
check A-OK. And you get a sense of like, okay, this is why this character is the way he is.
Yeah.
And as Terrahawks
exactly.
goes along, they do more of that too. They start to
Yeah.
get into
Not
to that
to the same
extent.
extent. No. You don't
But
get
they
a
do
scene where
explore
you don't get a scene where Neinstein's ex-wife falls down the stairs or anything like that. You don't get any of that.
No. No, just a scene of him falling through the White House because they forgot to close it behind them. when they
Yeah,
walked through the
yeah.
hall.
Well, this is it. The reason why I find Neinstein's leadership just about tolerable is, like, nobody disrespects him too much, but they don't show him that much respect. Nobody's turning around and going, "Oh yeah, Neinstein's the most wonderful leader." They might like him as a person, maybe, but nobody's necessarily like he's flawed, and people just kind of go with that. So yeah, he's not sort of put on a pedestal too much.
No,
No.
that's true. He's
that
more
makes
like
reasonable.
in that sense, he's more like Troy Tempest or Steve Zodiac, where he's sort of he's sort of a pastiche of that
Yeah.
stereotype, and you're
Exactly.
meant to poke a little fun at him. Hence Sergeant Major Zero,
Yes, of course.
the thorn in the flesh of Tiger Neinstein.
Yeah, I love that. So good. Oh, there's so many little details in Terrahawks that just those little character details that get teased out as it goes on. And yeah, maybe this sort of, I guess the point we're coming to is that all this is still kind of yet to come. It's sort of the early days of it are there in those early episodes. But it just takes a little bit longer to come out. But it's there. It's there.
And I really enjoyed going back and revisiting it this time around.
Yeah.
As you say, all those little details. The spaceship that launches from a tree.
Yeah.
Space Sergeant 101 with the doctor wouldn't like us to start making decisions.
Oh, that's very good. Well done.
You know, all that,
that's it.
All that jazz. It's just like all the little things of, you know, it's just like so many little details that are just, you're just like, I don't know why they did that, but I'm so glad they did. It's such a fun show.
Exactly.
It's my comfort food. I love to watch Terrahawks. Whenever I'm feeling down, it's like, it's a Terrahawks night.
I get that. I totally appreciate that. Well, we're doing something a little bit different, actually. Normally, we would throw to viewer comments right now, but I thought, well, we're talking about Terrahawks, and I discovered in my collection, I'd sort of forgotten I had these, really. I have a few back issues of SIG magazine from the 80s. I've got a few of them.
Look at this.
Which, of course, you know, the 80s was when Terrahawks was coming out, and so I thought, wouldn't it be interesting to get a fan perspective from the period of when Terrahawks was coming out? And I thought maybe I could read out a few of those
Fantastic.
today. I hope that's okay with everyone, because I mean, SIG magazine is absolutely full of correspondence from people who were Gerry Anderson fans at the time. This issue is issue 11 from autumn 1984.
Very nice.
And at this time, to set the scene, the first 13 episodes of Terrahawks had gone out in the UK anyway. And at the time, what's interesting about this particular issue is Gerry was also pretty confident that he was about to make a new series of Thunderbirds.
Oh.
So in this particular issue, there is a whole range of letters from fans talking about Terrahawks in the context of, well, if this is what Gerry's doing with Terrahawks, how is that going to reflect on him making a new series of Thunderbirds? What would that end up being like? And people have their opinions. It's fair to say. So I'm just going to pick out a few paragraphs. So
yeah, please.
I won't read out the whole because there's some really, really long letters in here. It makes for great reading. It gives you a real picture of what it was like to be a Gerry Anderson fan at that time. But I'm going to pick out a few points. So Adam Gary from York says, I think it is a mistake to create another Thunderbird series. I believe it shows a lack of originality. At present, special effects are not advanced enough for such a hardware-oriented program. The new puppetry is in its first stages and cannot compare with the string puppets. The original show had many settings, not unpopulated deserts, as seen in Terrahawks, which I have to say, that's one of my problems with Thunder Roar, is there's just nothing going on. It's just in the middle of the desert.
Yeah.
So,
which sort of works in Close Call, I have to say.
Yeah.
That's a great setting for a story. And
well, like you said, they have these pockets of space. Like you have the desert part, and they eventually develop Badwater County and all of this sort of stuff.
Right.
Later on in Terrahawks. So, I don't mind the unpopulated deserts so much as poor Mr. Gary does, but interesting nonetheless. Here's another one. This is from Neil Blomley from Rochdale, and he says, hello, Neil, if you happen to be listening. After watching all 13 episodes broadcast of Terrahawks, I can safely say I was impressed. Obviously, it borrows many features from past Anderson series, but a general audience has to be re-educated regarding puppet series. Terrahawks is doing this and paving the way for series that will come after it. The thing that annoyed me has... sorry, I'll do that paragraph again. The thing that has annoyed me more than anything is the overuse of Kate Kestrel and her limp songs. Every now and then is acceptable, but every other week is not. No matter how you photograph the puppet Kate Kestrel singing, it will always look silly. Wouldn't it look better if close-ups of Moya Griffith singing had been used? Both puppet and person look very alike. While Richard Harvey is a competent composer, the main theme is adequate, but the rest, ugh! The pounding drive and urgency of Barry Gray is non-existent, or the feeling of exultation when a mission is accomplished. Harvey's music is too light and just dribbles along. The idea of using electronic music in Terrahawks because it is set in the future is very outdated. Blah-de-blah-de-blah. Oh, he thinks that the effects are good. So that's nice. He goes on to specify sort of various different things in Terrahawks. Believe it. Remember that this letter started with, I like Terrahawks. But clearly, Neil has some criticisms to make.
That's fair enough.
Fair enough. Let's see. Steve Newby from Manchester says, so noticeable was the change in attitudes towards Terrahawks. I cannot help but write about this surprising result of the convention. Fanderson 84's 2 episodes were talked about all weekend, being received as well as anything. This was largely for their totally absurd and ridiculous scripts revolving around mostly hysterical, pitiful one-liners and puns, which farcically lambasted science fiction, modern culture, and life in general. Nevertheless, does it really mean it's good? I cautiously suggest that much fascination in pre-Thunderbird shows is in their tongue-in-cheek naivety. The question to be asked is, has Gerry been to too many conventions and judged taste likewise? For Terrahawks is based almost solely upon this. However, the 80s fashions and fads may be saving a new generation of fans who will be attracted back later as the styles and designs of the 60s make the show so appealing to us.
I have to apologize. I don't fully understand what he's saying. Is he saying there's too many puns in the show?
He's saying there's too many puns and there's too much self-referential stuff. He's saying that Gerry Anderson has been hanging around with Gerry Anderson fans for too long.
Right, and it's become
Basically.
it's become what we would call today fan service.
Yeah, it's too much of a parody of itself, which
Interesting.
is interesting. But it's interesting that this was an opinion that people had while the show was going out, and the idea of saying things like the 80s fashions are already too much of a fad, and it's like, but that's what was going on at the time. But isn't that it? Yeah, it's just really interesting perspective. After the this is another one from Bill Flowers in Australia. He says, after the letters
Bill.
in the latest SIG about Terrahawks, I was surprised that the series is going so bad in the eyes of Anderson fans. I seen it on Precision Video and I thought it was good. The faces of the crew are well done, but I much prefer Scarlet faces. Kate and Mary's faces are well done, but for the men, I'd much prefer Scarlet type faces. If Thunderbirds is to return, I think the new style of female face should replace Lady Penelope. Mary Falconer would make an excellent Lady Penelope.
Wow.
Interesting to get into the specifics about, what
Which
style of puppets was working for them and things like that.
Which
very
which
interesting.
Terrahawks puppet would you recast as Lady Penelope? Is a question I have never asked myself.
No, I mean, it's funny to think of it in terms of like, because Terrahawks is obviously such a one-off, like, apart from the Space Police pilot, Gerry never revisits that style of puppetry again.
No.
But it's interesting to think of it at the time where,
this could have been the start of a whole new thing.
Yeah, fans were so used to sort of the Captain Scarlet approach of like revamping the same puppets for multiple roles and things like that. So they were also looking at it from a sort of, okay, well, if Terrahawks is like the starting point for a new type of puppet filmmaking, then yeah, all right, they'll probably adapt that puppet to make it into Lady Penelope and things like that. It's
fascinating.
It's such a weird frame to look at it through, because obviously we know that that's not what happened.
Well, for my entire life, Terrahawks has been a one-off. There's never been there's never been a chance in my lifetime that Terrahawks would, continue, that there would be more Terrahawks and more shows made in the same production style as Terrahawks. That was ancient history.
Yeah.
By the time I was born, there was no.
Well, yes, exactly. That, so. Yeah. But I mean, they were looking at it at least for Space Police of using those style of puppets, but that obviously got phased out. And
I'm not sure. Well, I don't know if there was like a Fanderson screening of Space Police at some point, but
I think so.
I don't think most fans, certainly not in Australia, would have had a chance to see it.
Certainly not at this time.
So.
No.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. It's funny. There's so many things that it's like, in many ways, these complaints continue. Like, there's someone else talking about how, I wish it had been shot on 35mm film.
Yeah. That's a common one that I hear even today. I don't really know that's a grievance that doesn't bother me personally. I don't mind it being on a lower resolution film. I feel like it actually gives it a bit of like rough and ready charm. That's
exactly.
It's a bit more like documentary style is the wrong word, but it's a bit more like, I don't know. It just feels a bit more down to earth and less of a production. Whereas Thunderbirds, as much as I love the grandness of Thunderbirds, it's sort of, I don't know. It's not as intimate as a sort of like, production shot on video or 16mm.
Intimate is interesting that you say that, because one of the other complaints is that the sets for Terrahawks feel claustrophobic and too small.
Okay.
Which is noticeable. Yes, that all the puppets are quite, like, you look at like particularly a scene where all the members of the Terrahawks crew are standing on Space Hawk.
Yes.
Suddenly you feel everyone stood quite close together behind this control.
Don't have a lot of space.
You think, whereas you compare that to Thunderbird 5 and John Tracy standing on his own in the empty space. Do I prefer? I wouldn't say I necessarily prefer one over the other. I think it's just inherent to how it was shot.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, there's definitely
yeah.
because I saw them. I would have seen this after Thunderbirds, of course. So I don't have the perspective of someone who would have seen it in the 80s as kind of their gateway drug into the world of Anderson.
Yeah.
So I can't fully appreciate that perspective, but I do feel like coming to it from Thunderbirds, you get, I don't know, it's almost refreshing in a way how different it is. That's just kind of a perspective shift, but if you look at it expecting it to be Thunderbirds, you're going to be disappointed because it just isn't. It's its own thing, and it has its own.
But that's it. I think both of us came to it as like we were familiar enough with Thunderbirds. Yeah, we'd watched it growing up, and we came to it in that sort of early teenage years where we were kind of like ready for something a bit different.
Yeah.
So I can appreciate why fans at the time were like, well, this is too different. This isn't what we want, because they were yearning for the return to go back. That's what they were after. And this was before the 1990s revival of Thunderbirds and stuff like that. So at that time, it must
and before home video had really become a big, like the Thunderbirds in outer space, that was still like a pioneering home video release.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
there wasn't a ton of options to watch the old shows.
Yeah, so it's all interesting, these perspectives, but I'm quite honestly I'm pleased for myself. Really, I feel lucky to have discovered Terrahawks at the time that I did, and to have been able to therefore appreciate it in that certain way. That might have been different if it had come along earlier or later. For me, it was just right. So love it. I'm sure we will talk more about what do you think about these VHS compilations? We kind of got away from that topic, but how do you feel about it overall?
I think I'm hooked. I think I have to find and watch more of them now, because I actually, to be honest with you, Jack, and I know this is going to feel like heresy, but I think I preferred watching this to watching Thunderbirds in Outer Space.
Ooh.
I think that this is because there's the deleted scenes.
Yeah. Well, of course, yes, you get something extra by watching this, whereas watching Thunderbirds in Outer Space, you lose stuff. So that kind of makes
but
I can appreciate that.
You get some other, delightful bonuses like angel interceptors in space and things like that.
Yeah, I suppose so.
I don't know. I think it's a kind of affection that I have for Terrahawks, where it's like I can just put it on and there's no pressure or stress or anything. And it's just what it is, and you sort of like, you either love it or you hate it. It either works for you or it doesn't. And I understand and appreciate the objections that people have to it, and I can understand why for some people the idea of sitting down to an hour and a half long slog of Terrahawks episodes is not appealing. To me, that's like, I would love to just right now just go make a bag of popcorn and sit down and watch Menace from Mars. Sounds like a great way to spend my evening.
Well, how about we let you go and do that, and we'll wrap up the show for today. So thank you very much, everyone, for tuning in. I hope that was a nice little slice of Terrahawks goodness for you all. We will, of course, be back next week. You can catch the Security Hazard Show live every single Wednesday at 6 p.m. UK time. Just subscribe to youtube.com/JackNoel, and you'll be notified. Make sure to ring the bell. That's what they say, isn't it? The YouTube people, they say ring the bell so that you get notified of the subscription thing. But you can also subscribe to us on various podcast platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Good Pods, Amazon Music. There's all sorts of places you can get your podcast.
So many places.
Just look for the Security Hazard Show and you'll find it there. And you can rate and review us on those platforms. We very much appreciate it. Ben, is there anything else that people can do to help out their favorite Security Hazard podcast? Oh, there's nothing
else you can do.
Nothing I can do.
Except support us on Patreon.
Oh,
Patreon.com/security hazard. You can see the whiplash. Oof. So the Patreon page, we have an exciting thing on there now called anything but Anderson. Anything but Anderson. If you like Jack and me going off on tangents about things like Knight Rider, or just any other kind of pop culture item that has nothing to do with Gerry Anderson. You enjoyed this and you want to hear us ramble about something unrelated. And the gimmick is that if we mention Gerry Anderson or a related topic, such as one of his shows or a member of the team, then that's the end of the show.
That's it. That's the end. No more.
So support us there. It makes a huge difference. And there's tons of other stuff on there. Even if you like, things like Thunderbirds, which, I guess some of our listening audience likes Thunderbirds. I don't know.
Some of them do like Thunderbirds. It has been mentioned a few times. Yes. For everything else, head over to securityhazard.net. That's where you can find social media links, blog posts, videos, podcasts. It's all over there. Securityhazard.net. Ben, you're doing a funny little dance. I'm not really sure why. Ben, where can people find you on social media and beyond?
BenWolf.page is my link page. You go there to get Ben Wolf page stuff. You can get my Starfleet reviews. You can follow me on Twitter or Blue Sky at Cinemarionette, benwolfpage.bluesky.com. Or subscribe on YouTube, youtube.com/@Cinemarionette.
Well, you've put us into the 10 top pot. 10 pot 10 10 pot top 10 10 10 pop pop pop,
and it's wonderful.
It certainly is that. Oh, lovely job, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will catch you next week. Bye for now.